This is Dr. Eris Thorne. I'm recording this on a standard Olympus digital voice recorder, model WS853. The internal chronometer reads 22:47, Pacific Standard Time. If this file has been released, it means the automated dead man switch on my personal server has been activated. The implications of that are conclusive. For the past 2 years, I served as lead quantum physicist on a DoD initiative. The official designation was Project Heaven. Its objective was to establish a stable, traversable gateway to a parallel dimension, what they sold to us as a pristine second Earth. The initial data was flawless. So flawless, in fact, that it defied several fundamental laws of physics. We didn't build a gateway to a new home. We drilled a hole into a containment vessel, and now, containment has failed. It's imperative that I document the nature of the entities we've released. The official explanation will be insufficient. The truth is, structurally different from what you can imagine. Log entry 01, Dr. Eris Thorne, March 12th, at 14:32 Zulu, we achieved a stable state. The Thorne Viridian metric, the theoretical model I'd been developing for the last 7 years, has held. I'm observing the result now. Through a 3-foot thick pane of lead-infused acrylic. The facility, Site Obsidian, was constructed half a mile beneath the Nevada desert for a reason: to provide a baseline of absolute cosmic silence, shielded from radiation and seismic interference. From that silence, we've generated a signal. Visually, it's underwhelming. It's not a swirling vortex. It's a 2-meter circle of perfect blackness. My instruments indicate it isn't absorbing light, nor is it reflecting it. It's a null space. Around the perimeter, the air shimmers, a localized distortion not of heat, but of space-time causality, according to the readings. The supporting mathematics are elegant. Our oversight from the Department of Defense, Director Vansaman, whose expression typically ranges from stoic to unimpressed, clapped me on the shoulder. You did it, Thorne. You kicked open the door to a new world. In that moment, the entire control room shared a sense of profound accomplishment. A misplaced sense. As it turns out, log entry 02, March 20th, 2023. We have our first telemetry readings from the other side. They were, for lack of a better term, baffling. Energy readings were perfectly flat. 0-point energy at absolute equilibrium. No entropy. My first assumption was sensor malfunction. I had the diagnostics team recalibrate the entire array 3 times. A state of 0 entropy isn't just an anomaly, it's a thermodynamic violation. The readings, however, remained consistent. It was Director Vance who supplied the project's new moniker. You said you were opening a door to a new world, Thorne, he commented over the CUM system. This data, it looks like you found heaven. The name stuck. When the deep-range spectral probes finally resolved a visual, we saw why. The image on the main screen was of rolling hills under a sky of soft, pearlescent light. The flora consisted of forms resembling ferns and mosses, all in shades of silver and gold. There were no signs of wind, decay, or competition. It was a still life. Atmospheric analysis showed a nitrogen-oxygen mix comparable to our own, but with no pollutants, microbes, or allergens. The control room became emotional. Several technicians were openly weeping. The prevailing theory was that we had found a new home for humanity, a reset. The sense of relief was so profound that no one, myself included, immediately posed the critical question: how? What force could maintain an entire dimension in a state of perfect, perpetual stasis? Log entry 03, April 5th, 2023. The first probe mission, designated UGV-01 Genesis, is complete. A standard 6-wheeled unmanned ground vehicle, fitted with a suite of samplers, spectrometers, and high-definition cameras. The transition was seamless. At one moment, it was in the deployment bay, and the next, its cameras were transmitting from the other side. The video feed was remarkable, crystal clear. It moved across the silvery moss, but I noted it left no tracks. The material compressed under the UGV's weight, then returned to its original state, moments after it passed. No displacement, no damage. The probe's passage was erased from the environment. Genesis traveled for 10 kilometers. The landscape was static: same hills, same flora, same sky. There was a complete absence of fauna. The audio sensors registered absolute silence. Not a natural quiet, but the profound silence of an anechoic chamber. It was unnerving. The initial excitement in the control room was replaced by a quiet confusion. The probe collected samples which were returned via the retrieval port. This is where my confusion solidified into concern. The soil contained no microbial life. The flora had no cellular structure. They were complex crystalline formations mimicking biological shapes. The atmosphere was unnaturally sterile. It was a landscape that looked like a paradise but had the material composition of a museum exhibit. An intricate, beautiful, and entirely inert stage set. Log entry 04, April 18th, 2023. The project teams have bifurcated into 2 distinct camps. The discussions are becoming pointed. The biology and colonization teams argue the sterility is a feature, not a bug. A blank slate for us to introduce a terrestrial ecosystem without risk of contamination. They are already drafting terraforming proposals. My team, the physicists and some of the systems engineers, see it as a fundamental problem. I dedicated 3 days to running simulations based on the Genesis data. The primary issue was the second law of thermodynamics, the universal constant of entropy. This dimension appeared to violate it, existing in a state of perfect order with no discernible energy expenditure. It wasn't just impossible, it was a contradiction. I presented my findings at the morning briefing, putting forth the hypothesis that the phenomenon wasn't natural. I used the word artificial. The room went quiet. Director Vance stared at me. "Artificial, doctor?" he asked, his voice low and even. "Are you suggesting this is a construct?" I replied that it was the only hypothesis that fit the data, that the zero entropy state was not a natural feature, but a property being actively imposed upon the dimension. The dream of a new Eden was replaced by a less comfortable question. If this place was built, we weren't its first visitors, we were trespassers. And we had no information about the landlord. Log entry 05, May 2nd, 2023. The 24-hour visual monitoring of the gateway yielded an anomaly. At 3:17 a.m., the graveyard shift analyst reported a flicker. Upon frame-by-frame review, we isolated a visual distortion lasting less than a second. It wasn't an object or an organism. It was a pattern, a complex, non-repeating geometric pattern that moved across the landscape in a way that defied normal perspective. Imagine a ripple in a pond, but the ripple is composed of contradictory, impossible angles. Viewing it on the monitor induced an immediate, sharp migraine. I asked 3 different personnel to describe it. One said it looked like a swarm of insects made of broken glass. Another described it as a shadow folding in on itself. A third, a mathematician from my team, simply said, "It's non-Euclidean." He was correct. Its geometry violated basic spatial axioms. Our sensor arrays registered nothing. No heat, no mass, no energy signature. It was, for all intents and purposes, a ghost in the data. Then it was gone. The stage was empty again, but we knew it wasn't. Log entry 06. May 29th, 2023. Director Vance authorized a communication protocol. His logic was direct. If there's someone in the house, Thorne, we knock on the door. My objections were noted and overruled. The plan was to broadcast a simple, universal message. The prime number sequence, encoded in a low-energy laser pulse. For 7 hours, there was no response. Then, the environment itself replied. On a hill approximately 3 kilometers from the gateway, the silvery, fern-like structures began to move. They rearranged themselves, not like living organisms, but like clay being sculpted by an invisible force. Over 90 minutes, they formed a perfect, 3-dimensional representation of a tesseract, a 4-dimensional cube, projected into 3 dimensions. It rotated slowly, its internal angles shifting in ways that caused visual discomfort. We had sent a simple sequence, a mathematical primer. It had responded with a concept from graduate-level quantum mechanics. It was a demonstration of the intellectual gap between us. The casual nature of the display felt less like a greeting and more like a warning. Log entry 07, June 15th, 2023. The psychological effects on staff are becoming a measurable data point. I have begun experiencing nightmares centered on geometry, the non-Euclidean patterns from the anomaly appearing. In the tiled floor of my quarters, in the acoustic panels, in the swirl of my coffee, I wake with a headache and a sense of cognitive dissonance. These are not isolated incidents. Dr. Lena Petrova, a xenobiologist, reported auditory hallucinations of complex atonal melodies. A data technician was placed on medical leave after a panic attack, claiming he could perceive the wrong number of colors and shadows. Director Vance brought in psych evaluators. The official diagnosis is mass stress and cabin fever. I disagree. It feels like a residual effect, an informational echo left in our neural pathways from observing the anomaly. Vance dismissed my concerns. "Pull yourself together, Thorne," he ordered. His voice was firm, but I noted a flicker of uncertainty in his eyes. The first I'd ever seen. Log entry 08, July 1st, 2023. Washington was growing impatient and demanded biological data. Against my formal written objection, a living organism was sent through. The argument that sending a complex nervous system into an environment we knew was perceptually hostile was an unjustifiable risk was overruled. They called the subject Abel, a standard lab rat in a pressurized container with a live biometric feed. The container passed through the gateway. For 2 minutes, all readings were normal. Then, the video feed began to show static at the edges. The audio picked up a low hum. The rat's vitals became erratic. Then, on camera, it was deconstructed. Its tail unraveled into component cells. Its limbs separated cleanly at the joints. There was no blood, no apparent violence. It was a quiet, orderly disassembly. The most disturbing data came from the biometric feed. Its brain activity was off the charts. It was conscious for the entire process of its own conceptual dissolution. We were observing a creature being unwritten from existence. The feed went dead. Someone in the control room screamed. I stood there, my hands shaking, staring at the static. We had offered them a key. Log entry 09, July 10th, 2023. I have not slept. Vance has the project on full lockdown. classifying the rat incident as an unforeseen environmental hazard. He is attempting to contain a problem he cannot define. In secret, I have been running a new analysis. I accessed the raw, pre-processed data from the gateway's initial activation, specifically the energy readings we dismissed as instrument error. I applied a new theoretical model, that of an active containment system, a prison. I ran the numbers again, this time with the hypothesis that the zero entropy state was not the natural condition of that dimension, but a field being projected to suppress its contents. The math resolved perfectly. The flat energy signature wasn't peace. It was the hum of a colossal engine maintaining stasis. The stillness was the feature of a perfectly maintained cage. Heaven wasn't a paradise. It was a supermax prison for beings of pure information, of impossible geometry. We hadn't built a gateway. We had drilled a hole into the wall of a cosmic asylum, and we had just shown the inmates what a chaotic, beautifully entropic universe looks like. We had shown them an escape route. Log entry 10, July 12, 2023. I confronted Vance with my data. I laid out the containment field theory and the prison hypothesis on his briefing table. I expected him to argue. He did not. He just sat, his face impassive. When I finished, he let out a long breath. "You're brilliant, Thorn," he said. It wasn't a compliment, it was a lament. You were supposed to build the door, not figure out what was behind it. He confirmed the deception. The project's true name was Icarus. The anomaly had been detected by a deep space probe in the 90s. The goal was never colonization. It was weaponization. They saw the power to impose order on reality and wanted to harness it. They gave me the theoretical framework and told me to build a bridge, withholding the nature of the destination. The betrayal was so absolute, I felt a moment of vertigo. "What are they?" I asked. Vance shook his head. "We don't know. The original signal was designated the architects, because it seems they build realities, and they tear them down." Log entry 11, August 3, 2023. The entities are learning. Incidents at the gateway's perimeter are more frequent, more complex. The patterns now linger, pressing against the threshold. We can observe them on the monitors, shifting, evolving, testing the barrier. A new term has entered the project lexicon: informational transfer, a euphemism for the perceptual distortions affecting the staff. Dr. Eva Rostova, a physicist on my team, has been spending hours at a time just staring at the gateway. Yesterday, I found her with her hand pressed against the acrylic shield. Her eyes were unfocused. "They're not patterns," she whispered. "They're ideas. And they're looking for a mind to live in." I had her escorted to medical. I suspect it's already too late. They are no longer just knocking, they are whispering through the keyhole, and some of us are listening. Log entry 12, August 9th, 2023. We have a containment failure, not of the gateway, but of a mind. Dr. Rostova, while in medical quarantine. She began to speak in a string of phonemes, and glottal stops our software could not parse. Every staff member who heard the recording developed an immediate, debilitating migraine. It was a language that was informationally hostile to a human brain. Then she began drawing the non-Euclidean geometry on the walls of her room, using her own blood. Security guards who viewed the completed patterns were struck with instantaneous vertigo and nausea. One began bleeding from his ears. The entity, the architect, had found a host. It had transferred a piece of itself into a human nervous system. Eva Rostova was gone. What remained was a biological vessel, a bridgehead on our side of the wall. The prison was no longer a location. It was now also a person. Log entry 13, August 11th, 2023. The facility is compromised. An hour ago, a massive power surge originated from inside the facility from the medical bay. From Eva. The architect is interfacing with our systems. The lights are flickering. The PA is emitting the same low hum from the rat experiment, and the ambient temperature is dropping. I am locked in the primary control room with Vance and a skeleton crew. The architect is not destroying the facility. It is seizing it, rewriting code, rerouting power to the gateway's stabilization systems from our side. On the gateway monitor, hundreds of the patterns are massing at the threshold. The entity in Eva is attempting to open the door from the inside. We can hear rhythmic scratching on the control room door, like someone drawing complex shapes with a metal shard. Log entry 14, August 11th, 2023. Time unknown. Vance sent in Alpha Squad 6 operators in tactical gear, with sedative launchers to incapacitate Rostova. We watched on the security feed. They breached the door and fanned out. Eva stood in the center of the room, walls covered in her spiraling script. The lead operator raised his weapon, and then he froze, mid-step. One by one, the other 5 members of his team did the same. They just stopped. Their eyes were vacant. The architect hadn't killed them. It had edited them, deleting their consciousness. It was a display of quiet, absolute power. Vance lowered his sidearm. "This isn't a containment breach," he whispered. "This is a hostile takeover." On the monitor, the thing that was Eva turned its head, looked directly into the camera, and smiled. The power to the entire facility, save for our control room, went out. "I have initiated an unscheduled departure from the facility. Vance is gone." We were sealed in the control room as the architect began to break our firewalls. Vance looked at me. There's one last protocol, he said. The Arabist contingency, a localized EMP designed to fry every electronic system, including the gateway's containment ring, forcing a collapse. It's not a permanent fix, he said, but it will buy time. Get your logs. Get out. Tell them what we did. He initiated the 30-second countdown. As it ticked down, the scratching on our door was replaced by Ava's voice, layered into a chorus, coming from every speaker. You cannot close the door, it sang. We are the door. Vance pushed me toward the emergency exit. Go now. The last thing I saw was him raising his sidearm as the control room door buckled inward. I am now in the tertiary maintenance tunnels, heading for a surface access shaft. The main alarms are dead. The EMP must have fired, but I can still hear the groaning of the facility, and I can still hear her voice in my head. It's faint, but it's there. The EMP cut the line, but it knows our number now. I'm on the surface. I've been moving for what feels like days. There is no safe anymore. The Erebus contingency worked as designed, collapsing the gateway. Site Obsidian is now a tomb of fused metal and dead rock, but it was a delay, not a solution. Before the pulse, the architect had access to our network for nearly an hour. With Ava's mind as a Rosetta Stone, it has the blueprints, it has the Thorn Viridian metric. My life's work. They don't need our facility. The knowledge is in the wild. The quarantine has been breached in the realm of theory itself. The final, unifying hypothesis settled on me in the back of a cargo truck. We thought we were observing a prison. The paradigm is inverted. The architects don't see their dimension as a prison. They see it as a sterile, orderly, but limited cage. Our universe messy, chaotic, entropic asterisk. This asterisk is their paradise. It's a playground of mutable material to be organized, perfected, and corrected. They aren't coming to destroy us. They are gardeners who have just found an untamed wilderness. They will methodically and without malice deconstruct our reality and replace it with their own brand of silent, sterile order. I'm already observing the signs. Pixelated static on a broken screen, forming patterns my brain tries to follow. The intersection of tree branches at angles that feel fundamentally wrong. A momentary vacancy in the eyes of strangers. The informational transfer is now global, a slow-acting virus carried by reality itself. They called the project Heaven, believing they were discovering a paradise. The ultimate irony is that they were correct. Our chaotic, imperfect, dying universe. We are heaven. And the angels are breaking out of their cage to claim it. I'm uploading all files. My logs, schematics, the biometric data from Abel, the audio of Ava's voice. I don't know if it will be of use, but you have to recognize the signs. The moments of perceptual dissonance. The impossible geometry hiding in plain sight. If you are still here, then hit the like and subscribe buttons. Share your thoughts in the comments. I want to know your views on it.